Hey guys, it's DJ Randy T here, and welcome to part 3 of my Tech House tutorial. Today I'm going to be showing you guys my master project for my track, which I call Everybody. You can listen to it on YouTube and SoundCloud. Go check it out, link in description. But yeah, this is my master project here, and if you're a mastering engineer, please don't look at my master chain because you're probably cringing. If you look at this, it's kind of maybe unorthodox. I'm not sure. I'm not a mastering engineer. But yeah, so what I did for this project was I just stemmed out all of the tracks. So right here we have, the hi-hats, the second hi-hats, the cymbals, snares, kicks. Just all of the sounds bounced out. And I'm not going to be showing you how I did all the sounds. You can go back to the first and second episode to learn that. I'm just going to be talking more about arrangement and some of the additions that I made to it. So our intro is 3 sections long, and if I say section, I actually mean 8 bars, so like this long. But yeah, so it starts out with just kind of like a very bare bones beat, which what I did with the kick in the other project file is I took out the bass, so it's kind of more clicky. And then in the section it's basically the same, I believe. And then, but the difference is that I put the bass back in. And then the third section is also pretty simple, although I added the bass. And then what I did was I EQ'd it so that you're not getting that full sub. Or you're not getting most of the high end. Actually, I high passed it or low passed it. I forget what you call it. Let me see where this is. Yeah, I low passed it. Everybody. So that it's more of the bass and less of the high end. And then once you get into the fourth section, which is technically like where the song starts, or where the first break is, I guess. Then I bring back the high end. As you can see. So that's just that. And then what I also did was I used the sub drop, and I used the vocal echo out, and then yeah, this is basically the build-up, and it's a simple build-up, not too much going on. And that goes into the drop. Now, one thing that you might notice is that I have the laser build-up here. And then, yeah, that's basically the first drop, and it's really simple, not too much movement. And then we also have a second build-up. One thing that you might notice is that I increased the reverb as the build-up is going on. It's kind of subtle. And then one thing that I did with this version that I didn't do in my original project file was I added the lasers. So like if I was to take this part out, this is the laser, by the way, it would have none. The original version didn't have the laser buildup at the start of the drop, but I decided that I actually wanted it. So I put it in. And I think that made it a lot more interesting, and also made the second drop different from the first one. So this is basically kind of like drop 1, and then another build up, drop 2. You could also just call this whole thing the drop, I guess. There's a lot of songs that do this where you have a 2-section drop, and then it goes into a build up, and then, another drop, which I think is good because it makes it less boring. It doesn't just drone on forever, the kick, especially since it's a repetitive track. It's a tech house track. So it's, kind of repetitive in nature. That's kind of how it's supposed to be. Which is not an excuse for being a boring song. I don't think this is a boring song, in my opinion. Maybe it is to you. who knows? But yeah, next, after the first drop, we have the kind of second break, which is also a build-up, and it's a lot more intense than the first one. This just basically had the laser build-up, which we have here, and that's all. But this has a percussion build-up with the kick and the snares. And what I did with the kick, since of course, and I did this in the project file, I think, so it's baked in. I took out the bass so that you get the click. And then I basically just made it go faster. And then I also, in this project, I pitched it up so that it sounds more interesting. And then I also EQ'd it. I EQ'd out the highs so that it's kind of like seeming like it's coming out, and then when the drop hits, it's coming back in, which you can see. And then I also had to change the volume because it was getting a little bit loud. And then I also did the same for the snares. I rearranged them. I forget how I usually had them. I think I had them just going on like every quarter note, but then I changed that. So it's every half note, and then it goes into every quarter note after. So there's more movement, and then I also pitched it up, and then EQ'd the high end out a little bit, so that once again, when the drop hits, it comes back up. And that's really the only noticeable difference with the build-up. And then another thing I did with only this build-up was I used a master cutoff frequency, so I just high-passed it, and it sounds like this. So it adds a lot more energy, and it kind of takes out some of that bass, and then which makes it so it hits harder when it comes in, when the drop hits. So that's just a slight arrangement trick to kind of add more energy. You take out the bass and then you bring it back in when the drop hits. I also turned down the volume a little bit because the build-up was loud, like I said. Reverb, like we have over here in the two other build-ups. And then, yeah, that's basically it for the master project file. This section used to be 2 sections, but I condensed it into one. So we have the bass coming in halfway through. It used to be like this, so like the bass wouldn't come in for one full section and then it would come in for another section, but I just halved that because I didn't want to wait for it, and nobody wants to wait for it, so I just condensed it. Yeah. So in terms of processing on all of these tracks, I already did most of the processing like in the actual project file. So it's usually just some slight mixing, some slight volume variations, and then with EQ, just to kind of, take out the harsh frequencies or add some, or sometimes I didn't even do anything, but it was mostly just kind of doing another slight EQ to these layers. And then sometimes I would just compress it again, or actually in this case I didn't even compress it, I just added some gain. So yeah, really simple processing. All of the work has been basically done on the other project file. You can go watch the other 2 videos, links in the description, if you want to see how I made the sounds. But the master channel is kind of more where it's at. Once again, we have the reverb, which we've already seen. We also have the filter, which I showed you over here. But also we have this EQ. I turned down the bass as kind of like a mixing thing. There was just too much bass, so I turned it down. I added some treble, and then in this one, it's a little bit more whack. I was just kind of doing a little sweep and seeing where I liked it and where I didn't like it, and I guess I took out some of the low mids because they're messy usually, and then I added some mids for whatever reason, and then I also added some high end again. I like the high end, I guess. And then on this Maximus, it's only, I think I'm only playing with the gain. Yeah, I'm only playing with the gain so that I'm getting it kind of more loud and ready to go into Ozone, which I have over here, which I'll show you after actually. But yeah, so it's just turning it up. And then I kind of have some stuff clipping through, but it's not too horrible, and I think in the end it sounded fine. And then, actually, before I go into Ozone, I'll show you my limiter, which is just a limiter. It's not doing anything. And then I have a span. I just wanted to get those out of the way because they're not doing anything. They're just kind of there to make sure it's not messing up my master. So, the only thing I did with this is I took out the 30 frequency, or 30 hertz, and I brick wall limited it. So nothing's going past that. And that's all I did. I actually just learned about mid-side EQ, which I'm not using. I'm just using stereo. But in my next songs, I will definitely be using mid-side EQ. But yeah, I didn't use it because I just didn't know. I added a little bit of imaging, a little bit of width, very slightly, so it's not doing much. And then in the maximizer, I'm just using IRC2, which it's Intelligent Release Control 2, clear and sharp limiting to preserve peaks. So I want to preserve my peaks, of course, so that's why I use number 2, and I like the way it sounds better than number 1, because it's a little bit more smooth on 1, as it says in this. But I don't know, I like number 2, so I used it. I also added some transient and sustain. Yeah. And then I just put down the threshold to negative 1.5 to give it some of that limiting and compression that Ozone does. So it's hitting pretty hard, but I think it's actually I think it works. Like sometimes some songs, if I do this, it sounds bad. Others, it doesn't. Like this one, I think at negative 1.5, it sounds pretty good. And it doesn't feel too squashed, and that's kind of that. So yeah, that's just a quick look at my master project that I have over here. Remember to go check out episodes 1 and 2 to see how I actually made the sounds and what the sound and what they actually consisted of, what I actually did with them to achieve the sound. This I was just showing you kind of a little bit of the extra process that I've went through, which is not too extremely special. But yeah, I just thought that it would be cool to show you guys. And that's basically it. Remember to listen to everybody on YouTube and SoundCloud and the other 2 tutorials. All the links will be in the description. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all later.